Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andresa.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andresa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate InvestHER Show. We are thrilled to have you back on our show for a Minisode.
What? That?
What? Oh, God, my voice is horrible. No, Minisode is basically a new show format that Andresa and I are trying out here on the Real Estate InvestHER Show. And basically, we're going to be telling some kind of fascinating, hopeful, funny sort of stories that have happened to us in the real estate investing, arena. And we're going to tell it with about 10 minutes, in terms of a 10-minute time frame. And we're also going to teach some lessons along the way. So
that's awesome. One of the reasons why we chose this, because we are all busy, and Liz and I want to make sure that if you have a car ride, you can get something out of this episode and really take away and apply something. So that's the goal for it. Liz is going to start with a very funny question about a tenant. Let's get it started, Liz.
Okay, so we all have these lovely tenant stories. So about 10 years ago, my husband and I decided to purchase a commercial building, which was actually a 10,000 square foot building, and it was actually in downtown Trenton. Our goal when we purchased this building was to rent it out to one commercial tenant. And, we were excited. We had a plan in place, how we all do. We run the numbers. We're like, wow, if we can get about X dollars and we'll be definitely out of the rat race. We were so excited. This is one of our first purchases back in the day. So anyway, our plan was in place. And then 2008 happened. And I probably don't need to remind everyone what happened in 2008. But the market crashed and really wiped out any plan we had of attracting one tenant for the building. So we were stuck with a vacant 10,000 square foot building and no prospective tenants in sight.
How many units was that?
So this is a commercial site. So really, at the time it had space for one tenant, but actually that's kind of what we ended up doing was we ended up breaking up the building into small offices. We were a little bit ahead of our time. There's WeWork and all these kind of, commercial, small office space, but we actually came out with the idea at the time. It wasn't big even at the time, but we ended up dividing the building up to 20 small offices.
Cool.
So we all know how hard this can be. And we hustled and tried to get people in the door. Downtown Trenton isn't downtown, hustling, bustling city yet. So we really had to work hard to get prospective tenants. So we got one of our first people to call us. I'm going to call him John Doe for the story's sake. So John walked into our building and he came into this building. And when I tell you he was dressed to the nine, he was dressed to the nine. This guy came in, he's a young guy, but he came in with confidence. He came well-spoken in a suit. And basically, when we sat down together, he said, I really want an office because I have a nonprofit where I help young kids get back on their feet. Young inner city kids get back on their feet. He explained to me his nonprofit. It was really inspiring. I have a nonprofit background, so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I need to sit on your board. We were best friends within a half hour. Within a half hour. So anyway, over the next several days, John came to meet with my husband to sign the lease. We gave him a key to the office building. And he gave us checks. He gave us a check for the first month's rent and the security deposit. So we were excited because he literally was like the first person to give us a check for this building. And we needed checks coming in, to say the least. So the more I interacted with him, the more I liked him. Then about 3 days later, I got a call from our bank. And this is, I know, right? Dun, da, da, da. But this is the bank that I deposited his rent check in and his security deposit. So anyway, they told me that these checks from Mr. John Doe were fraudulent and that the account on the check didn't even exist. So not only were these bounce checks or these are actually complete fraudulent checks, right? So and we've gotten bounce checks before because if you have tenants and, we used to have a lot of those. Yeah, it happens. But actually, when the banker was explaining it to me, they're like, no, this is not a bounce check. This is a fraudulent check. So in other words, he created these checks. Wow. And, that's pretty bad. So anyway, I was like, what? I mean, I remember like, are you talking about the same person I'm thinking about, my new best friend, right? That wants to change the world one kid at a time. So, and I'm good at reading people. So I was like, oh man. So about an hour later, another bank representative. So I called him. I said, I spoke to him. I said, listen, call me back with your supervisor. I don't believe you. This doesn't sound like the person I met with. And I'm a really good judge of character. So anyway, that supervisor calls me back. They confirm the same information. So now I got to like, all right, this is it. So I'm like, oh man, now I got to call this guy, John, and tell him the bad news and tell him pretty much give us back the key fob because this guy's running an illegal activity. Wow. So anyway, when I called him, he didn't know what to say. He kind of rambled a bit. He didn't make any sense. And over the next month, we continued to get like tons of mail from this guy, John Doe. He must have given his business address, which was our address, to everyone he met with to seem legitimate. We started getting furniture delivered to the building. It was crazy town. So anyway, he snowed us and that was that. The kicker of the story is about 5 years later. Okay, now our office building is thriving. It's fully leased. We've come a long way now, right, in 5 years. So one day, my property manager pulls me aside and says, hey, we have a vacancy by one of our apartment buildings, one of our local apartment buildings in the next town over. I said, great. She goes, I got a great guy who I think is going to be a great fit for the 2-bedroom. I said, okay, what's his name? So she told me the name, and it was John Doe. Now, again, it was the same name as this guy who came many moons ago. And I'm like, that's not the guy who gave us the fraudulent checks. So anyway, I did a little search on my email and it ended up being the same email address.
Oh my gosh. He has amnesia too.
Oh yeah. So I pulled Matt aside. I said, Matt, you never guess who wants to rent one of our units in Ewing. It's the same guy who came and, who was my best friend and then ended up creating checks for his organization that never existed. So anyway, so Matt goes, I can't even call him. I got to get him in here. So he sets up a meeting with this guy because I couldn't make it the next day. And he sits down with the guy and the guy goes, oh, I'm so excited about your unit. And Matt looked at him in the face and he said, do you remember that you came into this building 5 years ago and tried to rent one of our offices and your checks were fraudulent? Do you remember that, John? And he goes, oh, is that going to be a problem to rent another unit from you? Because I can't lease to you because you just snowed me 5 years ago. And the guy goes, and the guy's like, oh, I didn't think that was a big deal.
No. You just committed fraud. It's not a big deal. No.
We're like, are you for real? The funny part is, I think, in a lot of ways, is that he tried to do this once and then tried to do it again. So, why I tell you this story, and I'm just so you're like, all right, what are you trying to tell us?
Yeah.
So, Maya Angelou said something very profound many years ago. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. So, really be careful about, and so much in this business, we like to give people a second chance. Now, we could have given him a second chance. It was 5 years later. It was for a residential unit, not a commercial, and he said he got his, he gave us this whole story. But I had to tell you, the people that we sometimes have given second chances to, contractors, subs, different people, it tends to bite us in the you-know-what. So just be careful about guarding closely to who you give second chances to. I also, just a simple one from a tenant perspective, is to never give out your keys, or in our case, it was a key fob to get into the building until the checks have been cleared. Now, this is a rookie mistake, right? He gave me the check, but it wasn't deposited yet. And I gave him the key fob. I gave him the key. Now, in an office building, what's nice is I turned his key fob off, which was great. However, you don't always have that luxury in a residential unit. You could change the locks, but it's more of a pain in the butt.
Absolutely.
Third learn lesson is keep good records of who you do business with and also who you do and don't accept as tenants. Because I was able to quickly look at John Doe, and I was like, this guy came in 5 years ago. He was the fraudulent guy. I recognized him. But, as we build teams and you build kind of processes and systems, you're not going to always be the front line.
Absolutely.
So you really need to have a system in place that you could, or your people need to have a system in place to ensure, because people, tenants forget, and then they're like, yeah, I'm back to rent another unit from you. So those are my learned lessons from my John Doe story where he gave us fraudulent checks.
That is so cool. And I truly think he's going to be back.
I know, right? So we're ready for the next time. So
awesome. Okay, great, Liz. Thank you so much, ladies. We hope you got value out of this, what is it called?
Minisode.
I hope you guys get a lot of value out of it, and stay tuned for our next Minisode.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.